In this video, we're going to dive into grading quizzes in Google Classroom. Hi, I'm Rachel Shell, Tech Coordinator at Archbold Education Service Cooperative. Today we're going to look at quizzes and how we can quickly import those grades into our Google Classroom. Let's get started. So we're in the Google Classroom yet again, and I am a teacher. And let's jump in and look at how we can grade quizzes in Google Classroom. Now, quizzes are graded a little bit differently, but I think in many ways they're easier than anything else that you are giving grades on. So let's begin by clicking on the quiz. You want to actually go to the quiz that you've assigned. And I'm looking at this quiz as a student, so I'm going to click the pencil in the lower right corner. And now I'm going into edit mode and I can make sure that I have everything set up. So I talked about this in the video on setting up assignments, but very quickly I'm going to go to settings and review that we must have these three boxes checked in order to import the quizzes. So we need to collect the email addresses. We need to restrict the users to your school. It will have your school's name here. And then I always choose to limit to one response, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a moment. I don't want anything else checked, and I'm going to save this. And now I am ready for students to take this quiz. So under responses, you're going to see that I have responses to this quiz. Because of the settings that I've used, I can see which student has taken the quiz. As long as students are logged into their Google Classroom using their school Google account, it will automatically collect their emails. Now, if they're trying to take the quiz under a personal account, or if they're accidentally logged in under a parent's personal Gmail account, then they will get an error message. So they will have to be logged in under their school Google account in order to take the quiz, which is great because that allows us to import these grades in once students have finished taking the quizzes. So I can review, I can see who has taken this, I can go down and review their work. I will get charts down here once we have more students taking the quiz, so I can see how many are getting the answers right and wrong, which is really great data to have. I can also go look by question to see how many students are getting the questions right and wrong, and it will collect all the information for me. Or I can go in and I can pull this drop down menu down and find a specific student's work and go and review their quiz. So those are just some different ways that you can use this data to go back and review what your students have done. Now, if you are having to manually grade questions, you will have to go to question, and you will have to go in and manually grade it from here. You can change the points, you can mark it right and wrong, and you will do that by question. And for each question, it will give you a list of every student. So on this one, it's a paragraph, so we have an ungraded response. So I'm going to mark it as correct and give it 1 point. That is their answer, and I will accept that. And we're going to save this. Okay. So now we have everything graded. So now that we have everything graded and we're ready to finish up with this quiz, we're going to go and import these grades right into Google Classroom. So I'm going to go back to the tab for Google Classroom, and this is the assignment I was working on. Instead of clicking View Assignment or clicking the quiz, I'm going to actually click on the number of turned in assignments. And then from here, you don't have to go into anything. In the last video, we looked at going in and looking at student work. We don't do that here. We would click the quiz to go back and look at the quiz, but we should have already done that. So we're just ready to import the grades. You will see a button up at the top here that says Import Grades, and this is all you do. You click Import, and it will actually pull the grade in, and there's the grade. Now notice it still says draft. So once we pull that in and we go back and make sure that all of the scores are in here, then we just click the turned in button. We click return, and then if you want to leave a comment for all of your students, you can. and then click return, and every student will get their grade back, and they'll get the same comment because you left that for everybody. And so that's it. Quizzes are super easy to grade because you do all of your grading here in the quiz, and then you just import that grade in. Now, if the import grade button is grayed out, the first thing you're going to need to do is come back here to the quiz and check these settings. So if these three boxes are not checked, then that's probably why your button is grayed out. So go ahead and check those, hit save, come back to here, and then if you refresh this page, you should be able to see the import grades. So one other thing you're going to notice, I'm going to jump back to the quiz. Under the scores where you can see all of the students who have taken the quiz, you get this button to release scores. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about the release scores. This is really only useful if you are using this feature. So under settings, if you're under quizzes, if you are later after manual review, if you're not letting students see their work immediately after each submission, but you are allowing them to review it later, then you're going to have to use the release scores button. That's how Google knows that you have reviewed it, and it will send an email to the student, and you can leave a message even, and it will say your quiz has been graded, your score has been graded, click here to review. If you are using immediate feedback, or if they can see their grade immediately after the submission, which I like, then I don't use the release scores, only because it does not differentiate between the scores you have released and you haven't. So every time you release the scores, if you don't remember who you've already released it to, you'll have to send that over. And that may be confusing for students because they will think, well, I've already gotten this email once, why am I getting it again? So that's not really a button I use unless I am using this option where they review later. But again, totally up to you. I just say don't worry about it. It's an extra step that you don't really have to take. One of the final things that I do want to talk about, though, in the settings, I keep telling you to limit to one response. So let me talk a little bit about that and how you handle retakes for students. So there's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can uncheck this box and you can allow students to take the quiz over and over again. The nice thing about it is since we have it turned on where they have to be logged into their school account, we can see each time the student is taking the quiz. And so we can see what their scores are, and we can see if their scores are improving or not. The only problem with this is when you come back here and you're importing the grades, Google can get a little glitchy. Sometimes it might import the first grade, sometimes it might import the last grade, and sometimes it might import the highest grade. So if you have a student who's taken this 3 times and they've gotten a different score each time, you're probably going to have to come back here and check to make sure that the right score is being brought in. So that's one of the reasons why I usually limit to one response, just so that I can see what score they got. And then what I do is if I want that student to have a retake, I will come over here to the 3 dots and I will make a copy of this quiz. And I may call it Quiz B. And then I know these are a few extra steps, but this will help you to keep up with the data that's coming in. I will come back to the classwork tab and I will create a new quiz. And this will be Quiz B. And this will be called Retake. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the quiz that I just made a copy of. Should come up in my recent. And what I'm going to do here is I would put in the number of points that it's worth. What I would do is instead of just blanket assigning this to all students, because that will be confusing, all your students will think they have to take it again, I would just assign this to just the students who need to retake the quiz. So once I've done that, I can assign it, and then just the students who need to retake the quiz will see that. I can drag it down here so that they can see that, and then let them know that that quiz is available and they can take it. What I like about that is you will have the original score and the original information, and you can see exactly what they missed and how they did. And then once they take the new quiz, you will be able to go back and compare that to the new responses. And maybe in this new copy, they can take this quiz as many times as you want. You may allow them to do that over and over again. But again, you will know what works best for your students. Those are just some options to help you out when it comes to grading quizzes.